It was supposed to be a peaceful family picnic, laughter, sunlight, and stories. But in one cruel sentence, my younger brother turned my success into a joke and my heart into ice. The sun over Albies Washington Park burned soft gold through the trees. Families gathered, grills sizzled, kids screamed in laughter. It was our Labor Day tradition, the Bennetts, pretending we were a normal family. I stood near the picnic tables, clutching my glass of lemonade, rehearsing my words for the 100th time. My palms were sweating, but I'd made up my mind. Today would be the day I healed the rift with my brother. "Hey everyone," I said, forcing a smile as my parents, cousins, and aunts turned toward me. "I've got something to share." My brother, Luke, leaned back in his chair, sunglasses perched like armor. "This should be good," he muttered. I ignored him. "I'm investing $10,000 into Luke's antique store. I believe in his dream." There it was, my peace offering, my final bridge. For a split second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Then the smirk came. "What's to be proud of, Tara?" he said loudly. "You just show off your body for a living." The laughter was instant. Dad's booming chuckle, Mom's amused giggle, even a cousin or two. "A joke," they said. "He's teasing," Mom waved off. But my chest burned like fire. Their laughter wasn't harmless. It was validation for him, not for me. Only Aunt Pamela stood silent, her sharp eyes fixed on my face. She saw it. The humiliation, the betrayal. I forced a cold smile. "You're right, Luke," I said quietly, "but I can make your dreams vanish." His grin faltered just a little. He didn't know it yet, but I wasn't bluffing. Later that night, the park lights flickered low as families packed up their cars. I sat alone near the fountain, my reflection rippling in the water. I thought about every laugh, every brush off, every time Mom said, "You know how your brother is." I'd spent years swallowing their favoritism, but something about tonight, that public ridicule, it broke the part of me that used to hope. Aunt Pamela came to sit beside me, her cardigan draped over her shoulders. "You okay, sweetheart?" I shook my head. "I just wanted to do something good, something that mattered." She sighed softly. "They don't see what you do, Tara. Some people never will, but don't let their blindness make you doubt your worth." Her words pressed deep into me, carving space where anger began to take root. Luke had always been cruel, but this time he'd weaponized my kindness, and our parents laughed while he did it. I looked at the faint glow of his car lights in the parking lot. Let him laugh now, because soon that laughter would die in his throat. When we were kids, Luke was the chosen one. Mom called him her miracle. Dad called him the future of the family. And me? I was the responsible one, the placeholder between their pride and his recklessness. I got straight A's. He barely passed. I stayed home and cleaned. He snuck out and crashed cars. Every time he messed up, Mom sighed, "He's just passionate." Every time I succeeded, she said, "Don't get too full of yourself." By the time we hit high school, I stopped trying to compete. He'd walk in late to dinner and everyone would wait to eat with him. If I came late from modeling auditions, they'd say I was selfish. Favoritism wasn't new, but the picnic humiliation, that was a masterpiece of cruelty. And I finally realized I'd been fighting for a crown I was never meant to wear. Aunt Pamela's apartment smelled like jasmine and ink. She was an illustrator, always surrounded by books and sketches. She poured tea into small porcelain cups, her bracelets clinking gently. "I knew he'd cross a line one day," she said. "Your brother's ego is a balloon. One good prick and he'll deflate." I smiled faintly. Maybe I should have stayed quiet. "No, darling," she said, stirring her tea. "You've stayed quiet too long." Pamela had always been my anchor. When my parents ignored my early modeling gigs, she showed up at my first shoot, cheering the loudest. She'd tell me, "Don't chase their approval, Tara. Some people can't handle your light." But that night, my light felt dim. The humiliation kept replaying in my mind.
the laughter, the smirk, the sting of my mother's eyes avoiding mine. "I just wanted to belong," I whispered. Pamela looked at me and said, "Then build a world where you already do."
I woke the next morning with a pounding in my chest. Not pain, but decision. Luke's business account sat open on my laptop screen. My $10,000, my gesture of faith, sat there, tied to his dream. I stared at it for a long time before my fingers began to move. Withdraw? Confirm. Each click echoed like a hammer against glass. When it was done, I leaned back, breathing hard. I expected guilt. None came. Instead, I felt clean. An hour later, my phone buzzed. "Luke, you're so selfish, Tara. You ruined everything. I trusted you." I didn't reply. Then another ping. "Mom, sweetheart, can't you just let him have this one thing?" "Dad, he's your brother. Be the bigger person." Be the bigger person. I'd been that my whole life. Not anymore. That night, I called Pamela. She didn't sound surprised. "You finally chose yourself," she said softly. "That's the beginning of everything, Tara. Remember that." And for the first time in years, I slept without tears.
2 weeks later, I ran into Luke at Mom's house. He was sitting in the kitchen, pretending to scroll through his phone. But his jaw was tight, his knee bouncing. The air between us buzzed with unspoken things. "Nice of you to show up," he said without looking up. "I live 5 blocks away, Luke. It's not an event," I replied. He set the phone down. "You really think pulling your money would destroy me? I got other investors." His smirk, that same one from the picnic, carved its way back onto his face. But this time, I saw through it. "That's great," I said calmly. "You'll finally stand on your own." He leaned forward, voice low. "You want me to fail, don't you? You always have." I almost laughed. "You've been failing for years, Luke. I just stopped cushioning the fall." Mom entered the room, tension slicing through her forced smile. "Stop it, both of you. Luke's under pressure." "Mom," I said, "he humiliated me in front of everyone. You never said a word." Her eyes darted away. "He was joking." There it was again, the invisible hierarchy. Luke, the golden boy. Me, the villain. I stood up and said quietly, "I'm not your problem anymore, Luke. And you're not mine." He didn't reply. But when I walked away, I heard him mutter under his breath. A single word. Jealous. If only he knew how little I envied him.
A week later, Mom showed up at my apartment. She'd never been there before, said it was too small, too far, too urban. Now she stood in my doorway, eyes red, clutching her purse like a shield. "Luke's gone," she said quietly. My heart lurched. "Gone where?" "Not dead," she rushed to add. "He just left, packed up and drove off somewhere. Won't answer my calls." She stepped inside, looking around my living room as if seeing my life for the first time. "You have a nice taste," she murmured. We sat. The silence between us was thick with years of avoidance. Then she said it, words I never thought I'd hear. "I'm sorry, Tara." I froze. "For what?" "For not standing up for you, for letting him treat you that way." Her voice cracked. "I thought I was keeping peace in the family, but I was just letting him hurt you." Tears burned my eyes before I could stop them. "I stopped expecting you to defend me a long time ago," I whispered. She reached for my hand. "I see you now. I really do." It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a beginning. And beginnings, I'd learned, were sacred.
Days passed before Luke resurfaced, not in person, but through a letter. It arrived in an old envelope, his handwriting sharp and angry across the front. "Tara, you ruined me. You always wanted to prove you were better. Congrats, you won. Hope you're happy. Luke." I read it once. Then again. And then I laughed. Not cruelly, but hollowly. All this time, he thought it was a game.
He couldn't comprehend that I didn't want to win. I just wanted peace. I tucked the letter into my journal and wrote beneath it, "I didn't destroy you, Luke. I just stopped building your world." That night, I walked to Pamela's studio. She was painting something fierce, a storm over a woman's face. "Keep that energy," she said when I told her about the letter. "Let his words remind you who you've become." I watched her brush carve lightning into the canvas, and I realized that was me now. The storm, not the silence.
3 months later, I was walking downtown when I saw him. Luke. He looked thinner, older, his sharp edges dulled by life. He spotted me instantly and froze. "Tara?" he said, voice low. I stopped, heartbeat steady. "Luke." For a moment, neither of us moved. The city noise hummed around us. "I came to apologize," he finally said. "Not because you want me to, but because I need to." I waited. "I thought I was better than you," he continued, "because Mom and Dad made me believe it. But when everything fell apart, I realized I was just hiding behind you." His honesty hit harder than any insult ever had. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he said. "Just don't hate me." "I don't," I said softly, "but I'm done saving you." He nodded, eyes glistening. "That's fair." We stood there for a long second, two siblings at the edge of something fragile and new. Then he smiled. Not the cruel smirk I'd known all my life, but something real. "Take care, Tara." As he walked away, I felt the strangest thing. Not victory, not vengeance. Peace. 3 months later, I was walking downtown when I saw him. Luke. He looked thinner, older, his sharp edges dulled by life. He spotted me instantly and froze. "Tara," he said, voice low. I stopped, heartbeat steady. "Luke." For a moment, neither of us moved. The city noise hummed around us. "I came to apologize," he finally said. "Not because you want me to, but because I need to." I waited. "I thought I was better than you," he continued, "because Mom and Dad made me believe it. But when everything fell apart, I realized I was just hiding behind you." His honesty hit harder than any insult ever had. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he said. "Just don't hate me." "I don't," I said softly, "but I'm done saving you." He nodded, eyes glistening. "That's fair." We stood there for a long second, two siblings at the edge of something fragile and new. Then he smiled, not the cruel smirk I'd known all my life, but something real. "Take care, Tara." As he walked away, I felt the strangest thing. Not victory, not vengeance. Peace.
It started small, a notebook filled with sketches, product ideas, mood boards. I called it Ember Studio, a brand for women who'd been silenced, overlooked, underestimated. I poured my savings into it, not the money I'd once given Luke, but what I had earned, modeling, designing, saving quietly in the background. I rented a small workspace downtown, walls bare, floors scratched, windows fogged by the morning air. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Pamela helped me design the logo, a golden ember floating inside a circle. "It's the spark that never dies," she said. Those early weeks were a blur of caffeine and chaos, late nights packaging orders, long mornings responding to emails, the quiet hum of self-doubt whispering that I might fail. But something strange happened. I didn't care if I failed. For the first time, I was chasing something that felt real. Not approval, not validation, just creation. One evening, as I turned off the lights in the studio, I caught my reflection in the window. For the first time, I didn't look tired. I looked alive. Success came slowly, then suddenly. A viral post, a few influencers sharing my designs, and overnight, Ember Studio was buzzing with orders. Mom called one afternoon, voice proud but tentative. "You're in the paper," she said. "Your father showed everyone at his office." I laughed softly. I guess it's official now. But beneath her pride, I sensed something else. Guilt, maybe even awe. For years, they dismissed what I did as vanity. Now it was the family's new trophy story. That night, I dreamed of the picnic again. The laughter, the sting. Except this time, when Luke smirked, I turned and walked away. And the laughter stopped. Dreams have a way of finishing what real life can't. The next morning, I found an email from Luke. Just 3 lines. "Tara, saw your store. Proud of you. I mean that." I didn't reply, but I didn't delete it either. Some wounds don't need reopening, they just need time to scar.
It was late January when Pamela collapsed. She'd been hiding it for months. The fatigue, the shortness of breath, the quiet pain behind her smiles. When the doctor said the word cancer, it felt like someone had stolen the ground from beneath me. "How long?" I whispered. She smiled gently. "Long enough to see you fly." I spent every evening with her, bringing tea and stories about the studio, about the customers who said Ember made them feel seen. She listened with her eyes closed, smiling faintly. "That's your magic, Tara. You turn pain into light." One night, she handed me a sealed envelope. "When I'm gone," she said, "open this, not before." "Don't say that," I begged, but she squeezed my hand. Even light needs darkness to be seen. I didn't know it then, but that letter would change everything.
Pamela passed away in early March. The morning light through her window was soft and golden, the kind she always said made the world look forgiving. At her funeral, I spoke through tears. "She was the one person who saw me when I was invisible," I said. "She gave me strength before I knew I had it." After everyone left, I sat by her favorite chair, holding the sealed envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a small gold key. The note read, "Tara, there's a safety deposit box at Albee Bank. Open it when you're ready. Everything I've saved is yours. Use it to keep the fire alive. P." I drove to the bank that afternoon. Inside the box was a folder, a journal, and a small velvet pouch. The folder contained the deed to her art studio, the journal full of unfinished sketches, and the pouch, inside was a necklace, a single golden ember on a silver chain. I put it on right there, tears streaming down my face. It felt like she was still with me, whispering, "Keep the fire alive."
After Pamela's death, the world seemed quieter, but not empty. Her presence lingered in every brushstroke, every whisper of jasmine from her old studio. I took over the space, moving my Ember Studio headquarters there. It felt right, like she had built the foundation and now I was meant to carry it forward. I hung her sketches across the walls, women with fierce eyes, standing in storms, rising from ashes. They became my muses, my reminder that beauty could coexist with pain. Ember grew faster than I expected. A magazine featured my story, From Betrayal to Brilliance, the woman behind Ember. Orders flooded in. Investors called. But success came with shadows. I found myself avoiding rest, afraid of losing momentum. Each sale felt like both victory and pressure. Sometimes I'd stand in Pamela's old studio, staring at the golden ember on my necklace, whispering, "Am I doing this right?" Maybe grief was my new fuel, burning quietly beneath every creation.
One rainy evening, a man came to the studio asking for me. He introduced himself as Daniel Ward, a documentary filmmaker. "I'm doing a piece on women redefining success," he said. "Your story deserves to be seen." I almost refused. I didn't want cameras dissecting my life, but something about his voice calm, steady, curious, made me pause. We filmed over weeks. He asked questions no journalist had ever dared. What does forgiveness mean to you? Do you think you became who you are because of the pain, or despite it? His lens didn't make me feel exposed, it made me feel understood. When he smiled behind the camera, I found myself smiling back. One evening after the shoot, he stayed behind to help pack up. You know, he said, "The way you talk about your aunt, it sounds like she's still guiding you." I nodded. She is. Every day. He hesitated, then added softly, "Maybe she sent me too." That night, I couldn't sleep. For the first time in years, someone had looked at me, not through judgment or admiration, but with genuine care.
Months later, Daniel's documentary aired, The Ember Within. It went viral. Suddenly, Ember Studio wasn't just a brand, it was a movement. Women wrote from across the world, survivors, artists, dreamers. They said my story gave them courage to start again. I decided to host an art exhibition in Pamela's honor, Women of Fire. We displayed her original paintings alongside new pieces inspired by her. Every wall glowed with strength. The night of the opening, I stood by Daniel, our fingers brushing occasionally, like the universe was testing our timing. When I took the stage to speak, my voice trembled. "This collection isn't about pain," I said. "It's about what rises after pain. It's about every woman who was told she was too much and decided to be everything." The crowd erupted into applause. Pamela's portrait hung above the stage, her smile immortalized in color and light. I swear, just for a second, I felt her there.
3 weeks after the exhibition, a familiar handwriting arrived in my mailbox. Luke. I froze. I hadn't heard from him since his short email months ago. Inside the envelope was a longer letter, one that felt heavier, almost tired. "Tara, I saw your documentary. I didn't recognize you at first. You looked so strong, so sure. It made me realize how much time I've wasted trying to compete with someone who was never my enemy. I've been in therapy. I've learned things about myself I didn't want to admit. I'm sorry, not just for what I said that day, but for every time I made you doubt yourself. I know an apology doesn't fix years of damage, but maybe it's a start. Luke." I read it twice. Then I sat there for a long while, silent. Forgiveness wasn't a door I'd been planning to open again, but the letter felt different. It didn't beg, it acknowledged. Pamela would have told me, "Healing isn't linear, Tara. Sometimes it circles back." So I wrote back, "Luke, thank you for saying it. I don't hate you. I hope you're finding peace too. Tara." It wasn't closure, but it was something gentler. The quiet end of a long, bitter chapter.
A year passed. Ember Studio grew into something bigger than I could have dreamed. Workshops, mentorship programs, collaborations with women's shelters. Each one carried Pamela's spirit, rebuilding others through creativity. Daniel became a constant in my life. He'd visit the studio, film new projects, bring me coffee without asking how I liked it, because he already knew. One evening, as we watched the sunset from the rooftop, he said softly, "You've built a world out of ashes." I smiled. "You helped me see the light in them." He reached out, took my hand. "Tara, you are the light." The city glowed beneath us, the horizon burning gold. And for the first time in years, I felt complete. Pamela's words echoed in my mind, "Keep the fire alive." I finally understood what she meant. The ember wasn't just a brand, it was me. And I was still burning, brighter than ever.
Fame had grown louder around me. Interviews, panels, invitations. Yet inside, I craved silence. There was something beautiful about watching the world move from the sidelines. I began taking early morning walks along the Genesee River.
barefoot on the damp grass, camera in hand. The city would still be asleep, and I'd whisper into the mist, "I made it." But success didn't mean perfection. Some nights, I still heard echoes of that picnic. My brother's mocking voice, my parents' laughter. They were ghosts I'd learned to live with, not wounds I had to reopen. One morning, I stopped by the old bridge overlooking the water and watched the sunrise break across the horizon, streaks of amber and rose melting into each other. I whispered, "Pamela, I hope you're proud." A gust of wind rushed past, scattering a few golden leaves at my feet. I smiled. It felt like her answer.
A year later, I received a message from my mother. Short, hesitant. "Tara, your brother's not well. He's been asking for you." I froze. The years between us had hardened like stone, yet I couldn't ignore the small pulse of concern that flickered inside me. I drove back to Albany for the first time in years. The city felt smaller than I remembered. The house I grew up in stood unchanged, except the laughter that once echoed through it had faded. Luke opened the door himself. He looked thinner, older. Life had humbled him. He tried to smile, but his voice cracked. "Hey, sis." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I stepped forward and hugged him. It wasn't forgiveness, not entirely, but it was peace, the kind that doesn't need words. We talked for hours. About Pamela, about Dad, who'd passed quietly months before, about how guilt can rot you from the inside if you don't let it go. Before I left, Luke said softly, "You were always stronger than me. I just didn't know how to admit it." I nodded. We both learned the hard way.
When I returned to Rochester, I felt lighter. It was as if some old knot inside me had finally loosened. At Ember Studio, the team was preparing for our next exhibition, Full Circle. This one wasn't about pain or even power. It was about peace. We displayed portraits of women who'd survived storms and found their calm afterward. Each photo was raw, unfiltered, glowing with truth. During the opening speech, I said, "Strength isn't fire all the time. Sometimes it's the quiet after the flames die down, the breath before rebuilding." The audience was silent, moved. Daniel stood at the back, filming as always, his smile soft, his eyes proud. Pamela's portrait hung in the center, surrounded by candles, not to mourn her, but to honor her endless light.
That night, after the exhibition, I returned home and opened my journal, the same one I'd carried since my early modeling days. Between old, yellowed pages, I found a note I'd written years ago. "One day, I'll stop needing their approval. One day, I'll be enough." I smiled. That day had come long ago, and I hadn't even noticed it. So I wrote a new letter, this time to my future self. "Dear Tara, if you ever doubt your worth again, remember the girl who walked through fire and didn't let it burn her spirit. Remember the laughter that once cut you, now powerless. Remember Pamela's wisdom, that every ember carries its own light. You are whole, always were. Tara." When I finished, I folded the page and placed it by the window. Outside, the city lights shimmered on the river like thousands of tiny stars. Years passed. Ember Studio became a legacy, a symbol of resilience and rebirth. Young artists filled the halls, sketching, dreaming, daring. One afternoon, I sat with Daniel at the Riverside Cafe, where we'd first talked about the documentary. He smiled at me over his coffee. "Do you ever think about how far you've come?" I laughed softly. "Every day. But I don't measure it in miles anymore. Just in peace." He reached across the table, taking my hand. "You still burn bright," he said. "I learn from the best," I replied. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I looked at the golden reflection on the water, glowing like an ember that would never fade. Pamela's voice echoed in my heart,
One last time. Keep the fire alive, Tara, but never forget to rest in its warmth. And for the first time, I truly did. The camera panned out. The city bathed in twilight, the river endless, and Tara Bennett, once broken, now whole, smiled into the wind. Her story was no longer one of pain. It was one of power. Quiet, graceful, eternal. The end.